everybody. So today I want to talk about something that at some point in your life, you have already experienced this at least once. You've been on one side of the fence or the other. When you don't do this thing, it keeps you sick, sad, stuck, and small. When you do this, it can transform your life physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. We're talking about forgiveness. If forgiveness is all great, why is it so hard? Well, forgiveness speaks a language that the logical, rational mind doesn't speak. Because think about it. If someone did something hateful, harmful, hurtful, forgiveness is like, yup, and forgive anyway. That doesn't make any sense. And that's because forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. It has everything to do with you. Because think about it. If someone did something to you, let's say a day, a week, a month, a year, 20 years ago, and you're still hanging on to it, how's it affecting you? What's it leading to? What is it causing you to do or not do? Who is it causing you to trust or not trust? What is it preventing you from experiencing, right? And holding on to that anger and that bitterness and that resentment, that's causing such physical issues. So, think about it. Things like it's causing it ignites the stress response. So now you have things like digestive issues, hormonal shifts, weight gain, you're exhausted, joint pain, accelerated aging, to name a few. And now here's this. The person who hurt you may not know, remember, or even care what they did. And here you are hanging on to it. Do you see the power that pain has over you? So it's not fair for you to hang on to it. And I think it is either bitterness or resentment or something like that, is drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And it's so true. You're hanging on to all this pain, and hoping on some level that it affects the other person, but it's really just hurting you. And you're essentially putting yourself in a prison that only you have the key to. So I want to approach this from two sides here. If you've hurt someone, I want you to look at it through the lens of what's that person experiencing? And if you've been hurt, you're going to understand why you're in pain and why things feel the way that they do. Because, we can't change what we're not aware of. So look at this through those two lenses. So, think about it. Let's just say somebody does something. When we forgive someone, we're thinking, am I setting myself up for it to happen again? Am I being a sucker? Am I making it okay? Am I somehow showing that you could do these kinds of things? And so it's hard because we're thinking that this is the setup. So if we forgive, then we're somehow making these things right or making these things okay. Also what happens with forgiveness is when someone does something to hurt us, we feel powerless. We feel like our control's been taken away. So forgiving someone is something that we feel we have control over. So if control's been taken away, we're not so quick to just hand that over again. So from those two perspectives, if you hurt someone and you're wondering, why aren't they just over it already? Well, because this is what they're struggling with. And if you've been hurt, no, this is why you're struggling. But there are also these really big other things that you'd have to give up, okay? Because you have to give this up if you forgive. Ready? You have to give up being right. Face it, being right feels good. You have to give that up. You have to give up self-pity. You have to give up your story. You have to give up. You have to give up having someone to blame. You have to give up justifying inaction. Well, I can't do that. Look what I've been through. You'd have to give that up. You'd have to give up, if you forgive, you have to give up learning to trust again, right? That's hard. So instead of dealing with the idea of, do I let you in? Do I keep you out? Is it safe to trust you? Is it not safe to trust you? You're like, forget it. I just won't trust anybody. And you get to feed and fuel your addiction. What am I talking about right there? When something happens, you lay down this track in your brain. And every time you think about it, it creates this chemical cocktail. and it lights up different areas of the brain. And as you're going about your day, you may feel like a little withdrawal. So what do? You think about it, and you give yourself a hit of these chemicals that just, light up certain parts of your brain. Just like any cocktail, those that pathway that you've created, and those thoughts are addictive. You'd have to break that addiction. Now, what do you get when you give it up? Well, you get to be free. I mean, you get real freedom. You get health. You get to heal. Your body stops breaking down and starts rebuilding. You get a way better story, and you get to be the hero or the heroine of your story. You get to be the role model also. And think about it. If you're walking around with this burden and you're carrying it in front of you, it's like, imagine carrying this like 50-pound boulder. You can't see what's right in front of you. You can't grab hold of any other opportunities. Your hands are tied. Your hands are busy holding on to this boulder. But when you forgive, it's like you're putting down that boulder, that huge weight, that huge burden. And with that, it frees you up, first of all, to see other opportunities that are in front of you, and just to and to access and grab those other things that are in front of you. So there are just so many so many benefits that you get when you make that decision. But I get it. It's giving up the small self gains, those ego gains, for those gains of the highest self. But you have to make that choice. Here's another thing too. There's an official name for it. I'm not sure what it is. I call it the window of willingness. So what this is if you're wondering, again, if you've hurt someone, why aren't they over it already? Or if you've been hurt, why didn't I receive this? Or why did I receive this? Take a look, because here's the 4 different levels of what makes someone willing to forgive and willing to, and also the most likely to rebuild. So it's starting from, imagine a window where it's the most open and the most likely that forgiveness can come right in and everything is good, to the least likely. So the first is, this one involves apology, remorse, and restitution. It looks like this. I'm so sorry. Apology. I feel so bad for what I did or said. Remorse. What can I do to make it up to you? Restitution. What's so great about this one is there's a high degree of empathy. My heart is speaking to your heart. And, here we're open. We're taking responsibility for what we said or did. And we're owning it. Now, of course, if you spilled coffee on someone, you'd say this. But if you broke their heart, may take a little more than just that. So, but here's where we're the most willing. The next level, the window closes a little bit, and that's because empathy goes down, defensiveness comes up. And this one involves excuses. And all you have to remember about this one is the word because. Like, for example, I was late because there was traffic. I did that because I was drunk, whatever. Anything that involves the word because, that's an excuse. And that may make you feel better, but the person you hurt, that's not making them feel much better. That's really for you. Now, it gets even worse with the third. The window closes even more. This one involves blame. I call this the 2-sided slap. It looks like this. I did this, slap on one side, because you did that. Slap on the other side. I said this, slap on one side, because you said that, you did that. And what's getting worse about this one is, here you were hurt by something and then you're getting blamed for it. So this one obviously doesn't feel good at all. And then the last one, this is the most infuriating of all. And this one is flat out denial, taking no responsibility, not owning it at all. This person is just, wasn't me. I didn't do it. Don't look at me. Any of this. This is absolutely infuriating. And I've been in these situations too. And, you're not really working with much when you're here. Here's what I would say if this is an experience with you. How do you find any closure when it's this kind of experience? This is why forgiveness work is so important, because you do it for you. How do you find any justice? That's karma's job. So I would say, as far as justice, leave that up to karma. As far as closure, leave that up to you. And, when you're in this situation, I want you to look at it now from both perspectives. If you've hurt someone, did you give them that? Did you give them that number 4, flat out denial? If you were on the receiving end, did you receive that? What did you get? What did you receive? And here's the thing. If you've hurt someone, the main emotion with all of this is shame. Shame is the most physically destructive emotion we have. I mean, it destroys you, and you do all you can to run from it. So you may find that you're using things like food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, reckless behavior, anything to distract yourself from yourself. But what's the way out of this? Light and honor. And what does that mean? Shine a light on it. Be honest, be open, take responsibility, and do right by that other person. And I'm all about self-forgiveness after you've done every single thing you can to do right by the person that you hurt. So instead of running from your shame, running from what you've done, face it. Put your big girl panties on, put your big boy pants on, and own it. Don't look for don't have any expectation. How's that person going to receive it? What are they going to say? How are they going to react? No, you're just doing right because that's the right thing to do. Now, I invite you to do something. If you've hurt someone, don't give them that, the denial or the blame or even the excuses. Go for that number 1, apology, remorse, restitution. Now, if you've been on the other end of this, you're the one who's been hurt. I want you to take a look and see what hanging on to all this pain is doing to you. It's enough. The emotions you're feeling, anger, bitterness, resentment, these are close seconds to shame, and they're creating physical, mental, and emotional wear and tear. You deserve so much better. And I remember this beautiful quote, the best revenge is a life well lived. And that's what you deserve. And another quote I just want to leave you with. I remember I heard this from Wayne Dyer. It was a Mark Twain quote. And it's like this: forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that crushed it. Isn't that beautiful? So to sum this up for today, there's so much more we can say about forgiveness, but just to sum it up, forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. Forgive and be free. If you've harmed someone, do right by that person. Apology, remorse, restitution, then all the self-forgiveness you want. If they're not alive and on this planet, make sure you pass it, you pay it forward by making sure, you don't do it again, and people in your world can benefit from your mistake somehow. If you've been on the receiving end of hurt, know that you've paid long enough, and you can't suffer enough. You can't hurt enough. You can't go through enough to have that person understand. So it's time for your healing. It's time for you to heal. Forgiveness is a process also. It happens in layers, stages. I remember thinking, it's just going to be one big ta-da, you're healed and you've forgiven. No, you forgive, you take it back. You forgive, you take it back. Good days, you're really good. Days that aren't so good, you're like, nah, I'm taking it back. And it's a process, and give yourself time. It's, there's also one last thing I want to cover, the if-then rule when it comes to forgiveness. And if you feel safe and valued and you forgive, you'll actually feel better for it. If you do not feel safe and valued and you forgive, you feel worse. So I would invite you to ask yourself, in your circumstance, are you forgiving because you just want to keep the peace, because you're insecure or afraid you just can't be on your own, or whatever it is, and by just forgiving, you'll be kept safe somehow? Or is it, what? I got it. I understand that people make mistakes and they've owned it. They've taken responsibility for it. I see that they're absolutely different than the person who made the mistake, because think about it. If someone was awake and aware, they couldn't hurt a fly. But we're constantly growing and evolving. And at the time that person hurt you, that was the best they could do. And if they've taken responsibility and they've transformed because of it, can you look at it and say, it's in my highest interest to forgive at this point? There's no right or wrong here. It's what makes you feel good. But again, if you feel safe and valued and you forgive, you'll feel better. If you do not feel safe and valued and you forgive, you'll feel worse. So ask yourself what you're going to feel by that decision. So I know I laid a lot on you. Forgiveness is a huge topic. I talk about it in the book, The Unshakable Woman, and in the workbook where, we just dive in deeper. I ask you a whole bunch of questions there. But for now, just think about that. Think about where you are and, where are you as far as that window of willingness? Go for that number one, and hopefully you'll be receiving that number one, and we'll take it from there. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.